to today's session. Welcome to today's session. My name is Aurelia Monene. I'm part of the Journal Club admin team and part of the AIDA Africa team. And this is part of the work we do. The activity today, which is the critical appraisal of a scientific paper of one of the members of the Africana Journal Club, which is the club that AIDA Africa formed to be able to bring together scholars from different disciplines, whether it's early career, whether you're seasoned, just come together to support each other, to improve our research skills through group mentoring and peer mentoring. And the ultimate goal for us is we want Africans to be in charge of producing and using knowledge in our continent. As we always say, Africa is one of the most researched continents in the world, but research in Africa is not led by African researchers. And this has to change, because if you're not leading conversations about your stories, it means how you're represented is also in a very selective way. So one way of helping us as African scholars be in charge of producing and using knowledge is to continuously sharpen our skills and to also break the hierarchies of me, I'm from this university, me, I'm from this country. That's why for us, we are mixed countries, mixed universities, mixed disciplines. So I welcome to the session today. We are reviewing a paper that was graciously shared to us by Lydia, Dr. Lydia Wambui. And she is here with us. And she's when she's settled down, she'll provide a bit of a background of her motivation towards doing this paper, writing this paper. But what I understood, Lydia, and you correct me, it is part of your PhD dissertation. This is a part of it. And you shared it with us so that we can review it and give our own thoughts against the criteria that I shared. Is that true?
Yes, it is, Aurelia. And maybe in the interest of time, I can just introduce myself. I have a background in working in the health sector in the earlier parts of my life. But I work as a lecturer. Most of my time I have spent lecturing in Southern Africa. And let me just say, Southern Africa, specifically Namibia, that's where my focus was. Namibia was a country that was colonized twice, once by Germans and then by the Afrikaners. And the education system was such that it did not allow Africans to do science subjects. Now, if Africans are not doing science subjects, then you cannot find an indigenous African who is a doctor or a nurse, because they did not do that in their high school. In fact, when I went there, there was a student who scored, I think, D in mathematics in 12th grade. And when he came for interview, he said he did not have a teacher to teach mathematics, he taught himself.
Wow.
Let me just say, that is history, because now he is serving with the Namibian, what do you call it, KRA, the Namibian Internal Revenue Authority, as a very highly qualified professional in accounting. Okay, so my motivation to study this is that, having worked in a health sector, I realized that there are sometimes you go to a hospital, meet a very highly qualified doctor, and the way they treat you, you just feel you'd rather not be sick, because they don't treat you well. And then they have the qualification, and yet the interaction between the patient and the doctor is not very good. Or nurses, for example, and it is like you've just met a nurse from hell. And so my motivation was to look at what are the factors that make a good nurse, a good doctor, a good professional. And I looked at the constructs of work calling orientation, that individuals, when they feel called to a specific profession, they are less likely to suffer burnout and more likely to be engaged in the work they are doing. So that was my assumption in starting the PhD. And so I did my PhD to see the interaction of the three constructs: work engagement, work calling orientation, work engagement, and burnout. And so my first assumption is that one, if the score for work engagement is high, the score for calling is high, and the score for burnout would definitely be low. The other assumption was that when individuals have worked in a specific profession for a long time, they develop mechanisms, coping mechanisms. And those coping mechanisms help them to excel in whatever they do. And so the more experienced the nurse is, the less likely they are to suffer burnout, and the more likely they are to be engaged. Another assumption was that when an individual knows what to expect from the employer in terms of, say, like career progression, remuneration, or whatever it is that you're looking from that career, the more you know what to expect, the more likely you are to engage in that profession, and the less likely you are to suffer burnout. And so when I did that for my PhD, and when I was done, this is the first paper I have written from my thesis, from my PhD thesis. I think, is that good background? Is that enough background?
I think that's a very good background. And is this being considered to be published, or it's just
it's a pre-publication?
It's what?
Pre-publication.
Oh, pre-publication. Yes. So it's like a preprint. Okay,
yes.
Pre-publication. Yeah. Okay,
yes.
This is good. It's always good to hear from the author, to have a bit of background of what motivated them, because what motivates them to do a particular study really shows in the choices we make, in the variables we choose. Thank you for giving us that background. And for us, just to emphasize that critical review of a text is a very, very important scholarly exercise that we must always engage in. If anything, I think everyone should be here, but I know people are busy. It's a Saturday afternoon, a Saturday night. It's a very important exercise because, one, it really helps us to sharpen our skills of analyzing how people present their arguments and the evidence they provide. And because of doing this many times, you find that it also improves how you write your literature review and other scholarly work. So it's a very important activity because it has gains on both sides, apart from also helping us to advance science. So how we approach the session today, we are here for up to 8. For those who are in Kenya, it's just an hour. So we are assuming that everyone read the paper, because the first thing is for you to review, you have to read. Then what we do, we hear from the author, like how we've heard from Lydia. Then I share a link, and I'm sharing again now on the chat. This link has the questions that we need to respond to. So let me put this link again on chat. It's a Google Doc, and together we do a collaborative review of the paper by answering the questions that are there. Let me see by show of hands, how many have read the paper? Maybe not completely finished, but they have an idea at least of what the paper is about. Show of hands, yes. Paul, great. Teddy, yes. Yes. Who has read the paper? Anyone else? Show of hands. 2 people have read the paper. I have also read the paper. Okay, so I'll still emphasize that it's very important. We said last time people were learning, so many people had not read. But I really want to emphasize that for this to be useful for you, you have to read the paper. Otherwise, what will happen? You will rely on what other people are saying, but your own critique, your own lens will automatically miss. So even if you've not read the paper, please try and read the abstract. Let me just share the abstract. At least you have an idea of the abstract, and then we shall discuss. So that is good. Maybe I can also have an indication of how come people did not read the paper. Is it the time? Let's also have an idea so that we can see how to support people better. What could be some of the reasons? There is the abstract, so please read the abstract at least. Let me also put it on the Google Doc so that you have an idea, plus also what Lydia has told us. The background that she has provided. Let me put the abstract here. And please click on the link. Let's all be there, whether you read or did not read, just click on the link. Click on the link so that we are together. I'll project the Google Doc. Let me just put up the abstract there so that it can also guide us and anyone who may want to check it out. Okay, so let's come on the document. Let me share screen. Okay, can you all see?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is the topic we are addressing. Last time people preferred to be in breakout rooms. So we are going to do that just for 5 minutes so that, 10 minutes, just so that people can also bond a bit and also just share some thoughts that they have. So the topic we are dealing with today is called burnout as a mediator for work calling orientation and work engagement in nursing healthcare professionals. Okay, so these are the questions, that is the abstract. These are the questions that we are going to review the paper. Question 1 talks about what are the claims or arguments is the author making and how have they supported those claims. Last time we unpacked a lot about claims. These are statements that an author makes that they sort of really emphasize where the direction they're taking with their research work, and how they present them is very important because then it allows us to see how have they supported the claim, what is the quality of the evidence they are providing to support that claim. Because in scholarly work, we don't just give opinions. When you say something, you back it up. If you're writing, you find that you're just making declarations with no support, then you're not within the good scholarly work. You're not really following the scholarly approach because it's like you're just sharing opinions. Maybe you say all Africans are corrupt, women don't like women overwork. Those are just claims you're making, but there's no references. So that's why it's important to understand that. Then question 3 is about the points that the author is making. Are they flowing logically? Logic is very important in writing because it allows us to follow the reader's mind and to follow the arguments they're making. What has been left out, and is it important? When you look at the author's work, what have they left out, and what is the importance of what they've left out? And then question 5 is, what parts do I agree with in this paper and why? What do I agree with? Well, kind of what they've done well. Which part do I disagree with? Is the methodology that they have used appropriate? What then is the strength of this paper? What could be the weaknesses that needs improving? What are some of the assumptions the author is making? And then look at the conclusions that the author makes. Although for this paper, I think Lydia stopped at data analysis, if I'm correct. So there might not be conclusions that have been made, but let's see if the way she has presented her work, it can lead us to actually make certain conclusions. It can lead us somewhere. You know, you can make some arguments and people feel with the way you're arguing, the kind of methods you're using, you're not likely to lead to the conclusions that you seem to be saying you will get. So this is what we are doing. So now I'm going to just group all of us in breakout rooms, just so that we can bond a bit and discuss the questions. So I will allocate the numbers. I think only 3 groups are enough because we are just 15. So the questions are, let's say the questions are 10 because the conclusion part is not there. So each group will do at least 3 questions. So group 1, you will do 1, 2, 3. Group 2, 4, 5, 6. Group 3, 7, 8, 9. Then the part for the assumptions we will do together. So let me see a thumbs up if that's okay. We go now to our groups and just try and figure out those questions. So let me just group you now. A few more people are joining, which is okay. Does anyone have any question? So let me stop sharing so that I can see the full. Does anyone have any question? As we said, we are learning and we are going to get better at this. Remember, when people are reviewing your paper, these are some of the questions they usually look for. Look at your arguments, your claims. So I'm now grouping you. So please move into your group as you can see it. Okay, let me share the Google link again. Okay, so now you've been invited to join the group. Thank you, Kirui, for sharing the Google Doc. Group 1, you're doing question 1, 2, and 3. Group 2, you're doing question 4, 5, 6. Group 3, you're doing question 7, 8, 9. Let's go in and we finish. Yes, Patalion Shoki, we have grouped ourselves. We have questions that we are answering. And let's be back by 7:41. Just 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I can see Teddy and Paula in the same group. Let me reshuffle you a bit because Teddy, you read the paper. Let me give someone who did not read the paper. Let me mix you so that at least we have someone who's read the paper in every group. Okay, Nduzu, please join the group. I see many people haven't joined. Let me pause the record.
Yeah, what I'm saying, it has been a good discussion. Yeah, at least we've tried to put up our thoughts,
yes,
which we've written on the chat.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for making an attempt to respond to the questions. And now we will not waste time. We will go now to the groups. and kind of find out what kind of discussions you are having. Group 4, please do, group 2, the orange part is the part I wrote, so please don't worry. I was also participating on my own, so please feel free to write your own. I just had some questions to ask in some of the areas. So group 1, please let us in on your discussions. I see there's something you've written under claims. Just 2 minutes. What did you discuss? What were the difficulties, even in identifying claims, maybe? Yeah. So someone from your group, just speak about how it was for you, and yeah, and what you have found out. Anyone? Group 1?
Mr. Gogo, can you lead on this one, what we've already put down? Yeah, unfortunately, group 1, we got in the same group. We got in at the time when people were breaking into rooms, and none of us had actually attended the first part. But from what we have, we were actually struggling to find each other out, and also to go through the document. And based on what we read during this short space of time, we said that the claims that are being made, that the calling predicts the work engagements. We just summarized that that statement, because I think that's the claim that is being made by these authors. And when it comes to how it is supported, we then said from the study, their analysis, their results of the variance sort of supported that prediction. From what they studied and the results that they analyzed, that's what the study showed them. And that's where we ended. We didn't do much. We're only 2 in our group. So thank you very much for giving us this time to engage. It was painstaking, but we ended up actually discussing and finding each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you struggle to understand the paper? Was there a struggle to understand what the paper was talking about?
We did.
Mm-hmm.
We actually, there was no clear flow, because from the way the whole have arranged the whole write-up, it looks like we went direct to the assumptions. We were not. It's. I assumed that I could have maybe being introduced about maybe what, something like engagement, something like burnout, before I went back to that subject. So in other words,
okay.
we just you put the assumption in a way that you can't find it easily. And then
the assumption or the claim? Which one? The assumption or the claim?
The assumption of the claim.
Is it, you mean they put the assumption in the way you cannot pick it out, or is it the claim? Which one do you mean?
Okay. We conclude like, anyway, claim and assumptions. I believe they are one. Are they synonyms?
Not quite.
Okay. So you using the right term the way he used it. We use the term like assumption anyway. It was like, because this is just like a claim to be true,
okay, yeah,
of which it's not
yes.
confirmed.
Yes.
Yes. So what happened? There is nothing to support the claim. It's just an assumption from nowhere. So it's not a proven word from somewhere. Like that it may be being introduced such that it was an experiment being done, A, B, C, D, blah, blah, something of that kind.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think it's important to document that the way the paper was written in terms of how it started, you felt you could not quite pick, it doesn't bring out very clearly the assumption, the claim very clear. I think I'll distinguish claim and assumption in that, but I would also like to hear the opinion of the rest. That for me, a claim is sort of a declarative statement that you're making in your paper, which is often made from certain assumptions that you've made. And then you go ahead then to give us evidence of why you're making those kind of claims. And sometimes you can even expose what assumptions you're making to make that claim. Or sometimes we as the readers can now try to unpack what assumptions are they making for them to make a claim that work orientation and work calling have an effect on burnout or how people work. So I don't know, what do the others feel? So thank you for that. I think, and maybe Lydia, you can also tell us how the paper starts, because also maybe there's no problem statement, like how it starts, how did you start, why did you start it this way? But this one you can tell us later now. Just note that in terms of flow, it becomes a bit difficult for the readers. So anyone else, how can we differentiate claims and assumptions? Are they one and the same things? When we are making a claim, are we also declaring an assumption? What do, just for the learning purpose, what do the others feel?
For me, these two are different, quite different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because one is talking about the claims, there must be some relationship or some evidence behind what he or she is claiming about. But assumptions do not necessarily need to have some evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I think of for myself.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So
anyone else? So assumptions don't have evidence, but claims you feel they are coming from somewhere. They haven't.
Yeah, I think I agree with him. Claims are supposed to be factual. Assumptions are more of an opinions. That's what I think.
Okay. So thank you for that. Anyone else with another answer, please? You can share, and we can also we can check also on Google or any textbook we have. Those who can access anything now, as we discuss, you can also put more insights on the chat. Yes, anyone else? So that we move to group 2. Okay. So thank you so much, group 1. We appreciate you had not read the paper, but we really appreciate what we were able to pick out. And I think for this kind of exercise, even what you cannot see, what you cannot understand, is always important to point it out, because it's also a message for the author. So group 2, you had question 4, 5, and 6. Please take us through your discussion. The orange part I said, I'm the one who wrote. Just go take us through what you were discussing.
Yeah, thank you. I think I'll highlight on behalf of group 2, and of course members will add where I may have left out. I think largely we I know the yellow part is what you put, but on the title, the context, of course, of study, that one I think was not didn't come out, should I say, clearly, as you've indicated. But now coming to that is number 4 on what has been left out. Then on number 5, on the parts that we agree with and also why, I think the choice of variables and of course and its dimensions, those ones we agree with, and this basically because they are related, they are symbiotic in relation, and of course, as far as the nursing healthcare profession is concerned. Also, most of the, of course, those assertions are supported by research works from other, of course, authorities. Then we'll go to number 6, where we, the parts that we had a divergent opinion, and this basically on the study, of course, is not focused to a specific issue, because it ideally what we thought is there should be a major aim, and then maybe 3 to 4 specific objectives, because you realize there were too many aims, as well as the hypothesis also there were many, and then basically it was difficult to concentrate and come up with a clear conclusion in such as a case. So basically that was discussion of group 2, but maybe members can add where I might have left. I know I had Paul. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Teddy. Now, we also saw in the work that the hypotheses were like 12 hypotheses for just a paper, and the aims were 6 aims. We could not differentiate whether this aim means the general aim or the objectives. We cannot really differentiate. Then there were no research questions in a paper. No research questions to focus on. Then we discovered there were no, the problem statement were not clearly spelled out. So all those, then the theory, the self-determination theory that the author used, well, she told us about what she meant by that, but we should also know, is there any limitation when comparing this and using, or does she need to have more theory that will substantiate what she meant? All these were begging for answers from us, but really because we discovered that if this is really published in high impact journal, there are a lot of work that is going to amend. So we just advising the author to reduce the aim, to have a single aim, and to have like 3 or 4 objectives, just as Mr. Teddy, and as we have said, then research questions, the problem statement, and all that is expected of a research work to be put there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Lydia, please take note so that you can help us understand the choices you made as we finish with group 3, why the aims, and how you, because I saw you are testing different variables. Now, finished work orientation. In my view, I kind of felt that was quite well done and justified. I think for the orange part that has not been mentioned, the first statement I felt was not very clear in terms of the way you phrased it, but you can explain it later. The characteristics of a job determine the job holder's experience. I just felt, how can the characteristic of a job determine someone's experience? That one is, I thought it's the other way around or something else. So that statement for me is not very clear. The characteristic of a job determining your own experience. So, and I felt the constructs are well understood, they are well unpacked, but the arrangement, we start talking about burnout before we even know what burnout is. Maybe like what the other teams have mentioned. Okay. So group three, I see you haven't written, But just tell us what you discussed and what are some of the issues you picked up from the paper, even if you have not written.
So thank you. This is group 3. The first question that group 3.
Yes.
So the first question that we tackled was on methodology. And we came up with that the study used the cross-sectional survey. And in this cross-sectional survey, these are strength because this one is able to group people in different environments. That the study is based in participants from Namibia and South Africa. Then the next one is on the strengths of the strengths. That's number 1. That the claims that are made here are backed by research reviews. Then number 2 is the methodology that when the data was being collected, that there is ethical clearance certificates obtained from every hospital. That the data gotten from institutions, I mean, the data was derived after getting clearance from the hospitals. Then the instruments that are used, I can comment on 2 ways that we discussed it, that there is a standardized scale used. One is what is known as the Utrecht work engagement scale, which has 17 items. Then there's another one known as work-life questionnaire, which has 18 true and false items.
Yes.
And another strength that we came up with is on the literature, but this one is the literature review that has been used here is current. And I ended up asking the author about whether because I can see that the literature review that is given here is very small. It's a small part, but I'm told that she just gave us a part that was able to just give us a glimpse of what the study was. Despite that, I think this one can come under the weaknesses, is that the literature review here, I can see the literature that is going far back to 2002, which according to me, I think the author should have used the current literature that's around between 5 years there. Then the other weakness that we have is that, as you've said, okay, this one has been said, that there is no problem statement. And the other one is on research questions which are missing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiprui. Thank you very much for that reflection. And you can see I was highlighting what you were observing so that we can all be on the same page. I think the comment I would make, Lydia, now prepare to come in and kind of offer the reflections. The comment I think I would make on the currency of the literature, sometimes we may have literature that is a bit dated more than the 10 years or 8 years requirement, but is very important for your study. And you can complement that with some newer studies, because sometimes you may want to trace the origin of something and provide that specific author who originated with that, and then you complement that with newer literature. So I don't find it personally always very wrong to use old literature, especially for arguments that you want to make that are very strong, and someone who came up with a particular idea, but then you need to show us how has that idea also progressed with time by providing newer authors. But also, Lydia, you can comment on the currency of the literature, why you felt that you were mixing a bit of old literature and the newer literature. So the floor is yours. We started a bit late, so please bear with me. We will just take, Lydia, you'll take around 8 minutes to answer those questions, and then now we can conclude. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much for the feedback. Where do I start? The assumptions. The assumptions is the author's assumption that may or may not be correct, but these are the what the author assumes is, it's like you're holding, if you hold these things constant, then when you go into research, you should be able to find whatever it is that you have hoped to achieve. So assumptions are quite all right, that they may be baseless, but they are supposed to be proved by the research. Claims, on the contrary, must be the output of the research. I have not put the claims down, the claims, because it's supposed to be at the conclusion, when I have looked at the analytics of the data and see how the data is leading me to make specific conclusions. I think that's that is conclusive. Then there was the issue of aims, hypothesis, and research questions. Let me first say that the three constructs, work, calling orientation, work engagement, burnout, are constructs that have been studied in industrial psychology. And so some of this lack of explanation is because it is assumed that it is already known, because it is a familiar term or a familiar construct within the industrial psychology. Yes, and I take positively that maybe I should reduce the aims and reduce bring on the problem statement and reduce the objectives to be more focused. On the issue of the theoretical framework, the basing it on the self, what was said about the theoretical framework? What did I write? Hey, help me out. What did we say about the theoretical framework?
The limitations of the framework
limitations
were not mentioned, so that we also understand by using it, what limitations could you possibly have,
okay.
And how are you managing those limitations in your study?
Okay.
Of the theory,
of the theory itself, of the self-determination theory. Okay, so they are already in the main paper, so I need to include them in the research paper. You recognize that I'm just looking at the two constructs in their relation to burnout. But in terms of the interactions of the three constructs, I have not included. So yeah, that's something I'll bring it. Job characteristics. Job characteristics, there are 5 job characteristics that are accepted in the industrial psychology that have been studied, and they have been accepted. And what my assumption was is that when those characteristics are included in a job design, then they affect the individual's interaction with the job. I hope that is clear. Then methodology. After methodology, what was the last one that I needed to address? Sorry, methodology. Oh yeah, the literature, the old literature, as Aurelia explained. And as I also said, that the constructs are familiar constructs in industrial psychology. And so because I was using standardized questionnaires that have already been used time and again, it was important for me to go back to the literature that standardized those questionnaires, because they are the ones that I was going to use. The variables, the independent and dependent variables, maybe that's just a question of statements. Yes, I will look at the variables.
Okay.
And put it more clearly, but it's there, but in variables. Okay. Anything else?
Okay. There is a comment from Kendi. Check how you're framing your hypothesis. Variable is not very clear. Independent, dependent, intervening. So Kendi, would you like to just put some voice on that? Yes, yeah. So that she can understand. I know it's not Kendi, but I'm just reading.
Yeah, it's Kendi.
Would you like to, yes, though she said she's using someone's phone, but would you like to comment?
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. As I said earlier on, and not really gone through the document, but as I was looking at the model that she has put down, I just looked at the variables which I found are not very clear to me. Remember, I'm only doing my third trimester, so I've not started on all these other business. However, I found when looking at the demographics characteristics and looking at the way the arrows are pointing to the various areas, I realized that something needs to be done in relation to this so that the independent variables can be very clear, because you find, for example, when you look at the calling, the job, the career orientation, which is pointing to vigor, to dedication, to absorption, then it turns back to exhaustion and all these other things that we are finding here. You'll find that there needs to be something clear to make this work much better. But I can see with some assistance, meaning from those that have gone through it, she'll be able to go through it, and we will also benefit from this as we get to this other stage. Thank you.
Okay, now it's much more clearer about the variables. I need to say every construct, that is work engagement, work calling, and burnout, is described in 3 sub-constructs. And the study was looking at the interaction of the major work, the total work calling, and the total burnout, and the total work engagement. And then looking at the interaction of the sub-constructs. For example, vigor is a sub-construct of work engagement. What is the interaction between vigor and career calling? When individuals think, or when the individuals have taken it upon themselves that whatever they are doing is a career as opposed to a calling, or as opposed to a job, how does it affect the level of vigor? And how does that affect the level of exhaustion in burnout? And so that's why the arrows are leading into the various sub-constructs, because the study was looking at the interaction of the major construct and the interaction of the sub-constructs.
Okay, it felt to me like burnout is the dependent variable. Like all these orientation and the other aspects,
engagement and
the engagement seem to be the independent, and then the outcome is what they're having in relation to burnout. But that's how I understood it. Even from how you're explaining it, I'm not so sure, but I think I also saw intervening variables where you talked about gender. These are the things that come in the paper.
Yeah. So basically what I'm saying in my paper is I'm looking at the interaction. That when exhaustion is high, then you are more likely to find vigor low. and calling low, and maybe job higher. Because when people in the description of the job is that when people go to a job, when people consider work as a job, they are there because of the financial gains that they are having. And we all know from the theories of motivation that money can only motivate you up to a level. After that, it stops being a motivation. So yeah, it's basically looking at the interaction of the constructs and the subconstructs. Yeah. And then in terms of the differences in interaction, in the differences in the scoring of the different scales across the demographic characteristics.
Yeah, I think what I liked about your paper is how with each aim, for me, I thought these are objectives. With each objective, nani yako Maryland? I can even understand the who is that anyway? Okay, so I kind of felt I found a strength in, for instance, how I took these aims to be objectives. You can correct me. You want to identify the nature of this relationship, and I really liked how you justified that element with literature, and then how it comes to the kind of hypothesis you want to make and that you're going to test. Because what I noticed, and I can be corrected as well, that many people, they state objectives, but they don't expound how are you going to test these objectives? What kind of, how are you justifying the objective itself, and how are you going to test it? So I don't know, I really liked this layout of going per objective, breaking it down and telling us this is what I'm actually going to test. Because at the end of the day, when you do your data analysis, we want to see what was the relationship between work engagement and maybe burnout. And that's one of the findings. But I don't know, from the group as we conclude. Yes.
I also had the same concern. If you go to the analysis part, there are very little information or relationship to the previous sections. And I mean the different aims that the author has. So on the analytics part, the author was supposed to tell us clearly the step used to analyze each of the said aims. And for me, yes. I wouldn't use the word aim. I would just, if the author meant objective, then this could be a specific objective 1, 2, 3, 4, the way he has narrated. And then I would expect down into the analysis part, the same approach should have been followed. Research aim 1 or specific objective 1, he used this methodology, and these are the outcomes, and the results should also relate to the same chronology. So I think the author needs to redo a lot on the analysis part, because that is where many eyes are looking at before even looking at the results. We need to see your pathways in the analysis part. Thank you.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same, that the way you just layered it out, because you have hypotheses you're going to test, and the analysis need to show like how are you testing this hypothesis. And so I don't want to add any sugar or salt there, but I think you've taken the point. Yes, Paul, let Paul also mention something and then you can comment. Yes, Paul.
Yes, thank you. Now I want to advise Dr. Wambu that she should limit the objectives, because now if the objectives are limited to between 3 and 4, the author should try as much as possible to compress the objectives to 3 or 4, then like having 3 or 4 hypotheses to test. So it's going to give beauty to this work, because this is, you know, in our group, I was telling them that this paper, from this paper, I can pick 4 different topics. From this same single paper, I can pick 3 or 4 topics that one can really work on and present 4 papers from this. I want to advise the author to streamline the objectives and let it be clearly stated, so that during analysis and the discussion of findings, she'll have a lot of things to discuss on. And when she's testing the hypothesis too, it will be easy for her to do. That's my submission. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Keep up the good work. Okay, thank you, Baba Maragana. You had also said an assumption is input. Let me just finish that, and then Lydia, you can conclude. An assumption is input, while claim is output. You start a study with assumptions, and your conclusions are the claims you come up with on the basis of your findings. I think that is quite appropriate. I've also found another definition that I feel also complements that you can actually make claims before, earlier on, you're making a claim that is allowing you to start your study. So there's this one I've found, it says, in an argument, an assumption is a premise that is not explicitly stated. These unstated premises are important since the validity of an argument is determined by the validity of the assumption. So I think it's kind of the same thing. The only difference I would say is that I think you can also make claims earlier on in your study, and it is based on that claim that now you start the study, and then you draw certain conclusions and certain claims. Okay. So yeah, so over to you. Finally, Lydia. Kogo had said you limited results in the abstract. Why? Why did you limit results in the abstract?
Yeah.
Yes. And maybe as you answer that, is this a paper for publication, or is just a paper you pulled out bits and pieces for this exercise? Because that may explain why we don't have all the results and maybe you can also tell us the layout of this paper. Is it for what kind of outlet is it for? Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I start with the last comment that the layout of the paper was as a result of a journal I had tried to publish, and some of the comments, and the reason I changed the format, I was trying to conform to a specific journal requirement that may not be like other journals. So I think that lays to rest. What was the other one? Limited result. The results are limited because it is an extraction from the major work of the thesis. And I was looking at trying to convince the reader that there is an interrelationship in the 3 subconstructs and how individuals respond to one when the score of the other is high. And so, yeah, that limitation is there. From Paul says about limiting the objectives, point well taken, but again, I was trying to conform to a specific journal, and it's something that maybe I can follow it up with Paul later. Steps of analysis, it was a quantitative analysis, and so when I am bringing the results, the quantitative results of the analysis, my assumption was that the reader is already familiar with quantitative analysis, and so whatever results I'm putting forward, it doesn't need I do not need to belabor to explain the process of having to do that analysis. Then I think Kendi has also put the work life quality may not be objective, true or false answers. I think in terms of work-life balance, I think in terms of the validity of a questionnaire and the reliability of a questionnaire, I did test it, and from a quantitative point of view, it was still valid. It may have had a different interaction with the population, the sample population, because of language barriers, for example. It could also have had a different interaction with the population because of the age, the demographics, and the individual expectations. But otherwise, the questionnaire is a valid questionnaire. And in terms of the score of the from the alpha, it is acceptable.
Yes, Abubakar, I think we are losing. Is Lydia, are you still talking?
Yes, can you hear me?
Oh, we had lost you a bit, then Abubakar has raised his hand.
Okay. How far did I lose you? I was trying to explain the last comment that Kendi, or the person who is with Kendi, phone is work-life quality. I was trying to respond to her comment that the questions of the true and false answers may not be valid. And I said the validity is dependent on the population within which you are collecting data. But in my study, the validity and the reliability, I tested and it was okay. It was acceptable.
Okay. That's good to know. And I think we are also learning a lot from the rigor in which you use this paper. Abubakar, I mean the rigor in which you applied in the paper. Abubakar, your hand is raised. Please ask. And then we conclude.
Yes.
Hello. Yes.
Hello.
Is it me or can you hear? I can't hear, the voice is breaking. And I would really want to hear. Yes.
Hello, can you now hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I will start by commending the author and the host of the meeting. So I would like also to chip in the abstract, having known that any abstract should
The voice is breaking up. Aurelia, I hope whoever is hearing will capture that for me.
I can.
No, your voice is breaking.
What I was saying is, can you hear me?
No.
Hello.
Maybe you can put on chat, Abubakar. We can just give you a minute to put on chat. We can't share you at all. Okay, as Abubakar is putting on chat, I just want to thank you all for coming. We will wait for you. Lydia, thank you so much for sharing with us your work. We really appreciate it. We are not in psychology, but you've allowed us to step into the psychology department of us and read your work. It is well done. As we always say, take what you can take. Also work with your supervisor to even look through some of the comments if you're still working on it. But I think this was really useful for all of us. As we said, if we keep practicing doing this, you also become better at your own paper. And next time, we're going to meet again next month. The next paper, we all have to read it because it is, you provide better comments when you have read the work and engage better with the author. So the next one we will meet. Next week we cannot meet. I'm not able to moderate because I have exams. I'm also doing a master's and I have exams on Saturday and Friday. So I'm not able to moderate the session on Saturday. So for this month, we'll just do this week. And then next month, we can see if we can do 2 continuous Saturdays. But otherwise, I'm very grateful for your coming. And I know we shall go places and we shall keep improving in our own reviews. Abubakar, have you typed the question? We are waiting. Okay, first you'd like to start by commending the author. Next, Abubakar. Yes, Lydia?
No, I'm saying just in case somebody wants to further their comments, I'm writing my email address so that they can drop it in my inbox.
Yes, yes.
But otherwise, thank you so much for everyone who contributed.
Abubakar is typing his question, so please give him a minute.
Okay.
And then please fill in the feedback form. We want to know what we need to improve in this activity. So here is the feedback form. Please fill it in. Please, that will really help us so that we can improve and get better. Whose hand is that is up?
It's Abubakar.
Okay.
I think he's still writing.
Okay, there is a feedback form. Please fill in. Fill in the feedback form. Abubakar, continue typing. Then we can close.
I hope he is not trying to talk because we can't hear him. I really wish he could write.
Meanwhile, as you wait,
Daktari,
I want to congratulate you. Lydia,
thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And then there was one last comment I was thinking of sharing.
Yes.
About the paper on this side here. There is this there is this term you used here. The study concluded that when you are introducing your the claim.
Yeah.
In fact, the term the study concluded that text the author. The reader, sorry. In the abstract.
In the abstract, yes.
Yes, in the abstract. There is this sentence. The study concluded that having work calling orientation predicts the work engagement.
Yes.
So the way that statement starts,
it's
like you are concluding already. It's like you have done the methodology. The term itself sounds like it's the results. It's after the results. So I don't know if it is better you change the term. The study concluded that it maybe use another term. The assumption was a kind of, because as the reader reads, it sounds like you are giving out a conclusion.
Yes, Mr. Congo, Congo, Congo.
According to what I was saying, the term itself, the study conclude.
Yes.
It's like you are in conclusion already.
Yes.
So I don't know if there is another better term that you can use instead of the study conclude.
I am not sure that there is anything wrong with study concluding, because as I said, this paper is an extraction of my thesis that I have already submitted, defended, and it is gone through. So in other words, in my findings, there are conclusions in my findings. After analyzing the quantitative data, there was evidence that work calling orientation predicts work engagement and burnout in the population.
Okay.
As to how much of work calling or what level of work calling affects work engagement and burnout, now those are the specifics that I was addressing in the paper.
Okay.
I don't know whether I'm responding.
Yeah, that's okay. But the concern was just the two words, study conclude.
The layout. I agree.
It was just a concern of the two words. If there is another term which means the same, I prefer that term than this one, so the two terms.
Like which one now?
If I may interfere.
Yes, yes.
I think it's a matter of shifting that sentence to the end.
Okay, okay.
And that will solve the problem without deleting anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think
Thank you.
Abubakar is saying the abstract should focus on the objectives, the methodology, the major findings of the paper. I mean, in this paper, the key finding is missing in the abstract here. So I think generally the layout of an abstract this paper needs to follow the layout of an abstract. You kind of give broad overview, just one sentence, then the problem statement, then the objectives, then the methodology, then findings, key conclusions. Then once we read that, we now have an idea of the paper. And I think because you're getting this paper from a broad research, you have to be careful that you're not leaving out very important information that someone who has no access to the bigger study is not able to follow. Because this paper is read on its own. We assume no one can access your major research. So as much information has to go in there within also the word limits of the publication, so that someone gets a very clear picture without having to rely on your major research. So I think that's where you need to put that balance so that, assume we cannot access your thesis. This should be a complete paper in itself. Yeah.
Okay. Point taken.
Thank you, Abubakar. Thank you, everybody. I wish you well. And yes, keep Tirui. The people don't want to go home, eh? Okay, keep Tirui. So you're already home. Yes.
Very quick question.
Yes.
To Aurelia.
Yeah.
I'm asking, what criteria do you use when you're selecting a paper for review in this group?
We just ask members to bring the work they've done. So it's really, we base it on members' work because one, it helps them to improve their own paper. So at least we're improving the work of a member who is existing and we can see. And also they can also be present so that they can also guide us in the choices they make. We may have an option of reviewing papers where they are of non-members if we don't have anyone to submit a paper, but we give priority to members so that we can also journey with them. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good people. I think now we need to go.
Thank you.
So I wish you well. Thank you so much, Lydia.
Thank you.
Give feedback on that feedback link that is on the chat.
Yes.
And bye-bye. Maybe we can also see people's faces, those who show their night faces.
It looks like my camera has failed. It was working, now it's not working.
Okay.
See everyone, I can see Teddy. I can see Pantaleon. Yes, I can see Abubakar a bit. No, I think it's a chair. Yeah, so lovely to see you. I think we also have to encourage the ladies. Maybe we are also not gender sensitive. Hi, Dominic, Abubakar. Maybe the ladies doing gender roles. So we also have to see how to take care of that next time so that the ladies are with us as well. So take care. Bye-bye. Candy, nice to meet you.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone, and thank you.
Keep Kirui, I've seen you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.